Um, Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I understand orders. I was trained to respond to them. So, Rob, my name is Ben. I'm a naval officer and the First Sea Lord. I think that was the introduction you wanted from me at the beginning of my speech. It's a pleasure for me to be here this morning and to speak with you and to just reconnect with the ever so important community that you represent in the maritime sector. I don't need to espouse the case for the sector to this audience. You're certainly invested in it and know the arguments, even if I sense from Tom's comments just a few minutes ago that the numbers are still yet to be agreed. But we do know that the sector is expanding rapidly, rebounding strongly from the pandemic, and has hugely positive prospects. And the same is true for us in the Royal Navy. Exciting because for the first time in almost 80 years, the service is growing. We have on order, with many already in build, 16 ships and 6 submarines, and that is just the major capital programs. The National Shipbuilding Strategy, which I know you will have discussed in detail yesterday, and the Integrated Review Refresh that has just been published, which will now lead to an update to the Defence Command Paper, are all providing focus, coherence, and I believe a long-term plan for shipbuilding in the UK that we have not had for a generation. And what started as a plan for naval shipbuilding has evolved far beyond that, supporting other government departments and the devolved administrations. It's a pipeline, commercial, government and naval, that I hope for the next 30 years will support this vital industry and continue to spread prosperity across the United Kingdom. Of course, the MOD, the Royal Navy, remains the biggest beneficiary of that strategy, and I'm delighted that so much of that work is being conducted here in Scotland. The sums of investment we're talking about are really significant. 1.7 billion a year from the MOD alone in shipbuilding, commitment to long-term infrastructure with more money announced for the nuclear yesterday by the Monday, I'm getting my time zones are a bit fragged at the moment, announced by the Prime Minister in San Diego. And perhaps most crucially, skills developments and apprenticeship programs that are providing the next generation of workers with the training vital to lasting sustainability and opportunity for growth. But the new ships and submarines we have coming are not singularly the results of the strategy, the shipbuilding strategy. Some of those decisions and contracts were made some time ago. But through the commitment of the strategy, I hope that industry is able to invest, certain of return. And that is manifest too in the confirmed export of the Type 26 design to Canada and Australia as the global combat ship, the Type 31 to Indonesia as Arrowhead and to Poland, and of course, most excitingly for me in the last couple of days, the announcement of SSN AUKUS, our shared endeavour with Australia. Whilst the headlines and the photographs will naturally be of the hulls, modern shipbuilding is a hugely complex undertaking. And success is the result of collaboration, I was listening, and cooperation between dozens, often hundreds of companies and contractors brought together for a single purpose. The shipbuilding process is and must be bookended by integration, and the importance of the final stage to complete the ship as a single cohesive whole cannot be an afterthought. So from initial design to final paint and commission, from designers and architects to engineers, builders and testers, collaboration at every stage is more essential than ever. And it's important because the level of change that this shipbuilding ambition represents for the service I'm privileged to lead over the next decade is so great that we cannot afford for delay or things not to work. The programme is bar taught, and getting our way through it will require a degree of sophisticated cooperation and planning that we're not traditionally used to, particularly for our people. And none of us can do it single-handedly. It is going to require a concerted effort across the maritime domain, and delivery on time, schedule, is now main effort. Just over a year ago in Rosyth, I spoke with some of you here, outlining the opportunities that lay ahead and issuing a call to arms to come with us on a journey. I'm really positive about what I have seen in response, but today I reiterate that call. We are still in the foothills of the changes to come, and they will be upon us really quickly. And since I gave that call to arms, the world has become even more complex. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and some of the more bombastic talk we're hearing from other nations. And because our output is what really matters, we have to recognize that time is against. But success offers us the opportunity to demonstrate the effectiveness of the national shipbuilding strategy in cohering the enterprise under a long-term vision and signalling to the whole maritime sector, the government and the nation, what we can achieve when we work together. Because where individual approaches may once have been enough, they will no longer suffice. We're in an age where the rate of technology is only increasing and the speed of relevance is quicker today than it was yesterday and slower than it will be tomorrow, and it will never abate. So we must keep up. Not doing so will cede the advantage. And I'm determined that the Royal Navy will ensure our approach to change, technological, people, skills and understanding, enables us to do this. It is unsurprisingly a significant undertaking. Historically, defence has not always been as fleet as foot as we or you might have wished. And so embedding the culture, incentive and processes by which we can rapidly explore new technologies and then exploit those which have been tolerably proven is vital. And I say this in a spirit of constructive challenge that neither has the sector been as agile as perhaps we would have wished, with the roles of primes and SMEs still to settle into that most exploitable and productive of relationships. But we are making progress. In the last few years, we are establishing teams that are solely focused on innovation, exploring quantum technologies to edge computing, AI to robotics and autonomy. Some strands are more mature than others, but all are proceeding in ways which are open-minded to opportunities, but also mindful of the array of challenges and problems in need of solutions. Some of this work is already having tangible output. Our autonomous mine hunters, representing seriously novel technologies, are already now deployed into the Gulf, on operations, trialling, learning as we go, and bringing real operational benefit. And we have recently ordered what will be the largest and most complex crewless submarine to be operated by a European Navy. The length of a bus, the extra-large autonomous underwater vehicle, and I'm up for a snappier title, answers on a postcard later please, is a capability step change in our mission to dominate the underwater battle space, developed by a small, innovative UK company operating at the leading edge of their sector. Alongside XV Patrick Blackett, commissioned last year as a dedicated trials platform, these are the sorts of ideas and innovations we need to look at. But the work is not just about equipment. It's influencing the way we train, shortening courses, delivering them in a smarter fashion, improving overall satisfaction rates, and ensuring we focus on the skills our people need in a modern, war-fighting, globally engaged Navy, whose workforce construct has to reflect the work-life expectations of those who serve and provide the certainty and stability our naval families crave. We have to think about how we regulate in this new age. Is it really feasible now that it is the regulator that is slowing down or holding up the speed at which we can bring things into service because we continue with linear processes, when I know concurrent activity will give us pace and agility? We are learning a lot from what is going on in Ukraine, and whilst I recognise they are in a war for national survival and we are not, which undoubtedly affects their risk calculus as a population and their acceptance of failure, there is, I think, a lot for us to learn about speed. And through this, we are also forging an organisation that is more agile, comfortable with change, able to overcome inertia, and more confident taking risk. We are striving for evolutionary advantage. Being able to change as fast as we can and then deliver operational advantage. Whilst we innovate and pursue new technology at pace, we're also engaging with wider defence and the tech ecosystem to understand and stimulate the option space, which will allow us to play our part in the challenges and opportunities of the transition to net zero. We are a significant emitter in defence, but a relatively small part of emissions from the global shipping industry. And I'm determined through our environmental sustainability strategy that we contribute to this endeavour not because we ought to, but because we must. But we are not big enough to lead in this effort. We have to be fast followers. And I've been struck on my recent travels just how welcome the sustainable design aspects of the Batch 2 offshore patrol vessels have been. Not just by our people who expect us to care for their planet, but also, and importantly, by those coastal and island nations the ships have been visiting across the Indo-Pacific, where climate change represents by far the biggest threat to their security and prosperity into the future. So our intent is that we will continue to build on the successes of HMS Spey and HMS Tamar, pathfinding new technologies, novel fuels and energy sources where we can, and understanding how we have got to adapt the way that we operate and, dare I say, fight in an environmentally conscious world. We rule nothing out at this stage, and such is the strength and depth of the UK's industry, tech and academic ecosystem that the prospects are, I am confident, bright for us to work out how we need to adapt. These conversations that we are having on a day-to-day basis are actually an enormous opportunity to elevate to another level, just as Tom was indicating. We are an island nation with a long history and heritage. There was a time, admittedly maybe over 100 years ago, when the Royal Navy, on behalf of the nation, sought to strike out across the ocean, explore and expand, and the Admiralty drove the national endeavour. Oak trees were planted decades in advance, purely for the benefit of the fleet. Agricultural output was transformed and grew by 15% during the 18th century alone to feed the Navy. And Samuel Pepys created the Admiralty Civil Service in order to administer the effort. It kept the Royal Navy deployed around the world, protecting nations and our interests, and the resulting levels of prosperity were really significant. The Admiralty was at the front, and the rest of the maritime and national endeavour fell in behind. The wars of the last century saw that change. The boom in the international economy, the sunset of the empire, saw the Admiralty's role diminish, with a multitude of other bodies, government departments and agencies created or refocused for the maritime domain. And I think in some of that, therefore, our voice was lost as a sector. But I sense a renaissance. There is increased recognition by government and the public of the importance of the sea for trade and prosperity. I don't advocate that we should return to the 19th century when the Admiralty was leading the UK maritime enterprise. Indeed, I expect many of you would be staunchly opposed to that idea of military leadership just turning up and telling you what to do. But I do reflect, across the engagement that I've enjoyed during my time as First Sea Lord thus far, that the spectrum of maritime business, industry, shipbuilding, charity, science, technology, academia do welcome our voice in this. And if we, having as we do, an internationally recognized brand, can use our cohering power to draw a dialogue to help these individual strands come together, adding to the collegiate and collective work that Tom, SMI, and many other organizations have talked about, then we're up for it. Our political leaders are alive to this. Disruption of global trade through the Suez Canal in 2021 brought home to the world in 6 days what we have been saying for decades. The sea is essential to economic prosperity. And I know from my conversations with him in the last few days, the Prime Minister also understands the economic value that we play in the nation. And then you add where we are with our infrastructure fragility. Message reiterated through the lens of energy. Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, thought to be safe on the seabed, were seriously damaged, seemingly by intentional means. We talk about how much of our trade by volume moves on the surface of the sea. Much less so do we talk about just how much of the value of our economy moves through the cables that lie on the seabed. The Prime Minister understands this and really welcomes the advent of the new Admiral ship into our fleet over the next few months as part of our initial response to protecting critical national infrastructure around our shores. Because it does require a joined-up and coherent approach across public and private sectors, and also between nations. Now, I've touched on it very briefly. I have been in San Diego for the last couple of days, and it was a privilege to listen to one president and two prime ministers as they spoke about a new strategic partnership across Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States. It was a historic moment. Only once previously in their history has the US committed to transfer its nuclear technology. That was 65 years ago to us. So we're at a profound moment, which was well explained in San Diego by the three national leaders, and I won't reiterate here. But what I will say is I absolutely welcome the opportunity that SSN-AUKUS represents. It will bring greater resilience to our nuclear and wider endeavour through economies of scale and long-term investment confidence. But it's also an enormous challenge for reasons I know you have been discussing. Availability of skills across the workforce, dependencies across and outside of the sector, and the risk of movement into other industries. And of course, Australia may be seen as a small minority, as a more attractive place to live and work than Barrow. But in my discussions with my Australian and American opposite numbers, we absolutely recognise the risk of fratricide among us as we help Australia grow their ability to be a nuclear submarine operating nation, while we in the UK and the US at the same time are bringing in our new SSBN capabilities into service, an endeavour that would be demanding enough on its own. So we know we have to work together. And we have to be transparent with each other about what we are doing, and we have to share our plans to successfully deliver. And that, I know, is the theme of this conference throughout. Because this approach will work for us all more widely. We are in an active competition today for skills and investment, and it is one we cannot be complacent about. So I want to join the call that I know that others have been making to think about the wider maritime enterprise. How can our actions and interactions create value and do more to strengthen it? There are exciting opportunities across the sector, nationally and internationally, but the challenges ahead are bigger than any one organisation can confront on their own. So if we can raise our game to be more truly collaborative, if we can bring out the best of each of our organisations, recognise the individual roles we play, and be comfortable that with an honest understanding of our strengths and weaknesses and our resources maximised, we will achieve an outcome greater than the sum of our parts. And from that, then, a huge, positive and confident maritime future will inevitably flourish. Thank you.
Superb. Thanks very much.